How did federal authorities get probable cause to convince a federal magistrate to issue a warrant so they could seize the ballots in Fulton County? After all, when you get a warrant, you need to show to a federal magistrate that there's evidence of a crime at a location and that there's probable cause that a crime occurred. But when it came to those ballots, they had been reviewed and re-reviewed, and there had been 60-plus judges that said there was no widespread election fraud. So how did the Trump administration get evidence to convince a federal magistrate to sign off on the warrant? Well, now we know the answer. Let's discuss. I'm Dave Ehrenberg, former state attorney for Palm Beach County, a.k.a. the Florida Lawman here on Substack. Thank you for your support. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It's still free, at least for now. Appreciate your comments, sharing with a friend, and let's talk about Fulton County. Let's talk about the fact that the Trump administration went to a very friendly source to get this search warrant. I'm not talking about the magistrate. I'm talking about an election denier within the federal government. According to the New York Times, an FBI search warrant affidavit unsealed on Tuesday shows that a criminal investigation into 2020 election results in Fulton County, Georgia, was set off by a leading election denier in the Trump administration and relied heavily on claims about ballots that have been widely debunked. The FBI criminal investigation originated from a referral sent by Kurt Olson, presidentially appointed Director of Election Security and Integrity, the affidavit said. Mr. Olson played a central role in Mr. Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 election, including speaking to the president multiple times on January 6, 2021. He has continued to push false claims about elections and was recently appointed to a key role in the Trump administration. Many of the claims in the affidavit referred to long-held and consistently debunked conspiracy theories about elections in Georgia, including arguments about fraudulent and duplicate absentee ballots, election machine tabulator tapes, and missing ballot images. And here's the problem. It wasn't about proving fraud in the 2020 election. It was about using the federal government to nationalize the upcoming midterm and the future 2028 elections. So Trump can obsess all he wants about his core MAGA theory that the election was stolen. It is a core theory, because if you're proven as a loser, then your invincibility, your rep all falls apart. But really, this is about the midterms, because Trump knows that the midterms can and should shut down his agenda. The Democrats are slated to take control of the House. It's supposed to be a blue wave. They could even win the Senate. But Trump has other plans. They've tried the gerrymandering, which has failed. Now they're trying this hoax of a stolen election that proves that we need to seize the ballots from the locals and needs to be run by the federal government. In fact, Trump's even said it, that the Republicans should run the elections in all these states. The key is that you have to look at the affidavit. The affidavit itself, which is sworn, is from a law enforcement official. It's from an FBI special agent named Hugh Raymond Evans. And it didn't actually claim to have smoking gun evidence of fraud that changed the 2020 outcome. Instead, it just pivoted to intent. So the hook they used was Fulton County's own admissions regarding administrative deficiencies. This was specifically the missing scan images of roughly 3,000 ballots and the duplicate scanning of others. And so the state board previously had labeled this as an administrative error. So the logic here is that if these errors were intentional, they constitute a federal crime under Title 52 that regards the retention of election records and the deprivation of a fair election process. And when it comes to probable cause, it's a low burden. A magistrate only needs to find a fair probability that evidence of a crime like the intentional destruction of records exists. So if they're able to reframe some sloppy bookkeeping as potential evidence of criminal intent, well, the DOJ then can create a narrow legal path for the warrant. Now, what's interesting is that I looked at the unsealed affidavit, and it even has a rare note of uncertainty from the FBI itself. Yes, so it shows that even they didn't necessarily believe it was a crime. They acknowledged in it that while defects exist, it's unclear if they constitute a crime, and that, to me, is where the magistrate really should have tightened the screws here. And here's a specific language of uncertainty. It's in the conclusion in paragraph 84 This is page 18 of the affidavit from the FBI agent. It says, if these deficiencies were the result of intentional action, the election records identified in Attachment B are evidence of violations of Title 52. If. Generally, you should have stronger language of that. Yeah, if it wasn't accidental, then there'd be a crime here. Yeah, but what proof do you have of intentional action? Especially when all these courts said there was no widespread fraud, there was no intentional abuse. I think the magistrate should have demanded more. It's like a fishing expedition. It looks like they're saying, well, we don't know, but maybe there is. I don't think that's good enough. I think they needed more. I think the magistrate, as we've seen elsewhere, you tried to prove that you're nonpartisan, that you're calling balls and strikes. It's very Merrick Garland-esque. You're just down the middle, and when you do so, you end up doing things like prosecuting the president's son for crimes that other people would not have been prosecuted for, allowing a special counsel to investigate the president of the United States and then release a report about his mental faculties, even though it wasn't directly related to the original question at stake there. So, that's what happens. And again, not trying to defend what the magistrate does. In fact, I think that she should have asked for more, but here we are. So that's the latest. I'm Dave Ehrenberg, a.k.a. the Florida Lawman. If you like this analysis, give me a subscription if you haven't done so already. It's still free. Share with a friend, leave a comment below. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you next time.